Hi, I'm Kyle Frederick. I'm one part of the America Needs Fredericks podcast. We're going to focus on Iowa football and Iowa basketball, maybe as well as some gambling around those on the Big Ten. This is my counterpart,
Connor Frederick. I'm the other half of America Needs Fredericks. We've been having these conversations for the better part of our entire lives.
Yeah.
We've been Iowa football fans since we were 5. We've been going to Iowa home games since we were 5. I don't know if we missed an Iowa home game from the age of 5 to 18. Maybe a couple on Saturday game, MIFA games. But other than that, we've been discussing Iowa sports amongst each other for as long as I can remember. And we figured we'd start recording these conversations to see if you guys like them as well.
I think to give it a little more detail on our kind of background with Iowa, I think starting in 2013, we started to obsess over recruiting and rewatching games just to break them down and kind of understand how Iowa plays. I think we can safely say we've watched probably every Iowa game on YouTube or some other format since 2013, around 3 to 4 times each. And then for every
Big Ten championship game, I've probably watched 45 times.
Yeah. And then going on to the recruiting, aspect of Iowa, we've for sure watched every single huddle of every Iowa recruit on that same time frame. So we have a very good idea of how Iowa wants to build its teams, how they want to win. I think we want to share that with everyone, kind of build a community of being some hardcore Iowa fans. And looking forward to it.
So we've been going to games since we were 5 years old. I bet between the ages of 5 and 18, I bet we went to over 40 games within Kinnick. Our dad would take us to games, and they had a tailgate with our uncles and our whole family. We still wear the games pretty hard on our shoulders. If the Hawkeyes lose, I'm sad for at least a week. Usually the second day, I usually don't want to talk to anyone. But when we were younger, it was always tears. I can't remember a single game we lost. Could have been, a basketball loss at home to Missouri, and I'm sobbing.
Yeah, it might have been the better way to handle it now than I do now. I think I used to express it all at once, and now I express it over a week.
Yeah.
Slowly.
All of a sudden, I'm freaking out my fiance, and I don't know why. But yeah, it's a huge passion of ours. We've been wanting to do something like this for a very long time, but now with the help of our producer, Nalter, it's all coming to coalesce. So we hope that you guys enjoy us in this journey, and hope to meet a couple of you guys soon on the tailgate.
Go Hawks.
Well, welcome to the inaugural episode of America Needs Fredericks. Today, we're going to try and give a preview of the fall 2023 season, but in a little different manner. We're going to do a snake draft where we go through the offense, defense, and then the 2023 recruiting class and try and project out, how a player is going to perform this year, what's going to be their draft status, and then, also tease in how they fit into the Iowa scheme, and then
looking forward to breaking down each player. I think it's been a good way to flesh out, our expectations for each player as well as the program as a whole. I think we're going to start with defense first because that's definitely the side of the ball that is going to be the most interesting this year.
Yeah.
Definitely has the most talent and star power.
And we're going to go to 10 players. And on offense, I don't know if we're going to make it to 10. We're probably going to make it about 8 that have some real potential, and that's including the transfers that we have in the 2023 season. The recruiting class is rather thin as well. It's very top-heavy when it comes to NFL talent. I think how Iowa football is going to be moving forward in the future is it's going to be a lot of transfer portal players on the offensive side of the ball. Hopefully, as the NAL program picks up, we'll continue to be able to pluck basically the B team from Ohio State and Michigan, Penn State. And we saw kind of the outgrowth of not having an NIL program last year, where we were walking into the season with walk-on receivers playing out wide, a lot of really young talent up front on the O-line, and then virtually no talent in the QB room. So that led to some pretty horrific games to start the season.
Yeah.
So without further ado, Nate, our producer, thanks again for letting us use all this equipment. If you want to kick off, the coin flip, we'll do a quick snake draft. We'll start with the defense.
I think this draft starts for defense. At least starts at pick 4. I think the first three
are obvious,
are very straightforward and anticipated. But I think you can make an argument for any player beyond that. expect a lot from this year, or expect him to get drafted as well.
Yeah.
Who wants to call it? Heads or tails?
Tails.
Tails it is.
Let's go. Easy pick. I'll go with Cooper DeJean. This is definitely the best player on our team at the moment. I think the expectations for Cooper coming into this year are astronomical. He's been projected as a first-round pick. Connor and I like to talk about him as a Heisman contender. I think that is
game.
Yeah, I think, but it's also the Iowa fan, and that's where we want to. Our best player is going to be in the Heisman race. But he's definitely probably the most hyped player coming into a season since Desmond King, Josie Jewell, and Beathard in 2016. I think the expectations for him, and I just don't see how he doesn't live up to them.
Yeah.
I think he's just such a talented, great athlete that has great instincts, and I just don't see how he doesn't perform to that level in the all Big Ten level.
I think with any, good player, your first thought when a season starts is injury. That's really the only way the season gets derailed for him. He's great in run support. He's probably, I bet he's going to weigh in probably 210 as a corner, true corner too. He runs as well as anyone in the league. He's not going to get beat over the top. I think he got beat over the top one time last year against Ohio State. It was a perfectly thrown ball by Stroud. But other than that, he started inside at slot, and then once we had an injury to who was injured? Was it Jamari?
It was Roberts.
Oh, Roberts, yeah.
And Jamari.
Jamari. Once he moved outside, though, they could essentially play press man to the wide side of the field and isolate him. And teams either had the decision to throw at him or attack somewhere else in the field. And then what we saw is a lot of short side of the field throws where Iowa football tackled well, and all of a sudden you're in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3 without the ability to run.
Well, I think, Phil Parker's going to expand his role as much as possible too.
Yeah.
The defense is going to be called around him. It's going to be putting him in the most difficult situations every play. And when Phil can do that, he did it with Desmond in 2015, it really puts a lot of pressure on the other offense, because the right choice and the right option will be actually to throw at him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be 3 yards off the ball, facing the receiver. He's going to be in press. And the play it should be targeted at him every play. The way we play zone, the way we run our defense. And Phil's just going to maximize that every play. We saw that late in the season. That's why I think our defense really stepped up and around Wisconsin, and definitely in the bowl game, just the way they played. And I think the last 4 games even, you could really see Phil kind of figure out he had 2 real corners.
Yeah.
And DeJean was, basically, I'm not going to trust anyone else on my team more. I'm going to trust him.
Which is crazy as a true sophomore too.
Yeah.
The fact that you can get to the point where Phil Parker doesn't trust a lot of guys, but he had Desmond King level trust in him immediately.
Right.
And he made a lot of plays early in the season. He had that pick against Nevada, had the pick 6 against Rutgers. And there were just so many splash plays he made where he looked different than anyone else we've seen in those positions before.
Yeah.
Well, I guess moving on, another guy they're going to put in a lot of difficult positions. It's another obvious decision right off the bat, and we're going to go snake, so I get the next 2.
Yep.
But Xavier Wampka. Sorry,
Wampka.
We call him X. We called him Wampka for 2 years before we learned how to pronounce his name. Highly talented recruit out of high school. The fact that I was able to hold on to him from, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, all the big dogs were in on him. Didn't see any time until the bowl game, but then made a huge splash play, pick 6, looked like a freak athlete, like what we expected.
Yeah.
We were a little worried about how he produced early in the season. He played a lot of special teams. He missed a couple tackles, didn't look overly physical.
Looked juiced up.
And that's expected for a true freshman, even on special teams, to be a little nervous. And it's very rare that you'll see anyone play in the Iowa defense as a true freshman. So it's not necessarily a black mark for him to not play into the bowl game and when Merriweather was sitting out. But same thing that we said about Cooper. Phil's going to be able to drop him into the hole and cover one man and say, hey, here's 20 yards of area to cover. Go make a play.
Well, we saw in the bowl game, he was 8 yards off the ball the entire game.
Yeah.
You generally don't put that pressure on that young of a player. But what that does to an offense of having, your 7th defender 3 steps away, 4 steps away from the line of scrimmage, I mean, every single run play that spilled to him, he shot down.
Yep.
And Phil having two of those guys, I don't think we've ever seen it. I don't think we've ever seen a Cooper and Wacampa on the field at the same time. And Phil's just got to be.
We had a little bit of that with Moss and Cooper this year, where we line up and press man on both sides, and
right.
I think still it's not the same.
More than just having Wacampa in the middle of the field.
Yeah,
I think just it's hard to avoid them. Like you're not gonna be able to avoid both of them, and there's gonna be a lot of defenses they can run that just gonna put them both in difficult situations. Phil's gonna challenge them, and it's just gonna be difficult to have a consistent game plan against us that doesn't attack one of them at once.
Yeah. Well, moving on now to the next pick, but I think you probably have the exact same one, but Aaron Graves is the obvious third choice.
Yep.
Another guy played on the interior line as a true freshman, virtually unheard of anywhere in the country. But again, how Iowa plays defense, they're a two-gap scheme. So that's asking the player to not only understand the scheme to a certain level where they know what they're actually attempting to do out there, where they're not getting upfield, they're not trying to make a pass on a player, but then having the strength to stand up interior lineman in the Big Ten. Yeah. That's about as rare as it gets from a player. And Aaron Graves, again, you could see him coming out a little nervous his first 4 or 5 games where he'd stumble on a couple, he would lose his balance, but the push was there. And then as the season developed, I forgot which
Purdue game.
Yeah, Purdue game, he really stepped up and made a lot of plays in the backfield. And this year, it's interesting because he's going to be listed as a backup D tackle. And the other guy who I'm going to try to play a draft is also backup D tackle before our other two starting D tackles. But we've talked about you're going to almost be forced to move him outside because of the depth at D tackle.
He's going to get the Van Ness treatment. He's not going to be listed as a starter, so everyone can complain about that when Graves gets drafted in 2 years. He only started for 1 year.
Yeah.
But he's going to lead the team in snaps. He's going to play rush downs at D end. He's going to play rotational downs at D tackle.
I think he's
going to be.
I think he'll play rush downs at D tackle.
Yeah, you could see him
because you're just going to want Evans and probably Herkett out there wide.
Yeah,
or Craig.
I could still see him as a rotational D end when those guys get tired.
Yeah.
But I mean, to him, play as a true freshman on the line of scrimmage. Kirk always says, if you're a young guy, you're playing early. You're more likely to play early. They're farther away from the ball. Receiver, corner. You don't need the physicality and the strength to play. As a freshman,
balance, all of that thing goes.
Yeah. And for them to trust him as a true freshman to come in and play good snaps, and then him to produce, it's one of those things where Iowa, they're going to be okay with him not playing up to par for the first 6 games because by game 7 he's going to be a performer.
Yeah, it's a new high watermark for interior linemen within Iowa.
Yes.
He's already the highest potential player we've ever had in that position. And that's crazy to say as a true freshman.
Yeah, it's just wild. Well, now I think the draft actually starts because I think those 3,
those are obvious.
In my head, they're the NFL caliber players on defense, the surefire guys, where I'm not blinking. I'm going there in 2 to 3 years, they're going to be drafted in the 1st and 2nd rounds.
I'm actually excited to see where you go after this because I'll probably.
This is really hard. I think this is the hardest.
There's probably it's 3 through 8 is all the same guy.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a position that Iowa consistently develops, in a position where he kind of broke through at an early enough point.
Son of a bitch, going for my guy,
Deontay Craig.
Oh no.
Oh,
all right.
Okay,
he's farther down my list than I thought you'd have.
Well, yeah, I think Deontay's going to be a hell of a player this year. I think he's had to sit behind a lot of veterans up until this point.
Yeah.
He fits the model of what we want at the end. He's the perfect build, size, and athleticism.
He's a little small. He's like 6'2", probably.
Yeah.
6'3".
But I think this year's his, going to be that Van Valkenburg first year he comes on the scene, Chauncey. He gets the go move.
Yeah.
When it's 3rd down and 10, they're going to unleash him. And I think he's shown flashes of it. I wish he'd shown more to this point. I think if he had, I would have drafted him higher. But I think just based on potential and just being a D end at Iowa, and having the time to grow like he has, he's the redshirt junior now. It seems like the clock's ticking, and I fully anticipate him to have a great year. I think
we've seen that
10+ sacks. Yeah. We've seen it happen before. Chauncey, you could have said the same things.
Yep.
You see the potential.
Shown flashes.
Played early. I think it's time for Deontay to step up and take that role.
I think to a certain extent, like you're talking about that go guy. Usually Iowa, how they approach pass rushing in general. This is not always true for every play, but they usually have 3 guys administering a bull rush, playing 2-gap, looking for a QB trying to shoot through a lane if possible on a scramble. And then they have 1 guy who's kind of got the go, saying, okay, you can take the outside route. You can use you can implore whatever move you want to use.
Yeah.
And in the past, it's been Epineza, Golson, Ben Ness, and I would venture it might be Joe Evans this year who they give that credence to, just because it's a 6-year senior.
Yeah.
But I think Craig has a lot higher ceiling than Joe Evans.
Yeah, and I think they might view Evans as a Hesse. Even Hesse never got to go.
Yeah,
like
true.
He always kind of played that rotational. Guy. Like they trust you to play first and second down. I think Deontay's just got the athletic profile that they believe in him probably the most to get home.
Yeah,
and that's why I picked him.
Yeah.
So I got another one, right?
Yes, you do.
Oh man, there's so many players I think that just kind of fall under the same category here. I think I had to go with my favorite player to watch is Castro.
Yeah, that's what I was going to take.
I
would have taken him 4th.
Really?
Yeah, because our only concern with him was pass coverage, and Michigan targeted him, a third of their throws, and I don't know if he had a big play against him.
Right, that was kind of his last game of where teams were in Illinois. I think Isaiah Williams targeted him a few times, or they targeted him with
Illinois
Isaiah.
or Illinois.
Oh. I'm not gonna say that.
That's some Iowa popping through us.
Yeah. But yeah, Castro is he's starting to fit that Amani Hooker role, just the size and athleticism he has. His high school film is probably my favorite film I've watched in the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Just the amount of physicality he has in it.
Violence. Yeah.
So vicious.
Yeah.
I think if you showed any football fan,
yeah,
they're like fall in love with him instantly.
Yeah.
And he nearly never saw the field.
Yeah.
If Roberts and Jamari don't get hurt, he probably is transferred.
He never plays it down
because Wacampa comes in and he beats him out this fall because they're going to give it to Wacampa.
Yeah.
And he might never seen the field, and he got the fortuitous luck to have Roberts and Jamari get hurt.
He was kind of that guy we loved in the recruiting process, and then he had seen some time in dime where I could think of the Minnesota game in 2021 where he got beat a couple times off the ball, and we're like, oh, we knew he'd be great in run support, but we thought he might struggle in pass, and we kind of are a little confirmation bias, like, he's going to struggle in the pass.
Yeah.
And then once Cooper beat him out at Cash, we're like, oh, Castro's dead. Probably never played down here.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
which was sad because you wanted to see him play, and you thought it was a classic Phil Parker backup DB where you had this NFL borderline talent that just lost to another NFL
Julius
guy.
Brents, DJ Johnson, so many of those guys.
Yeah, Brent's for sure. Fleming back in the day, 6 years ago. Yeah. I'm excited to see him this year. I think you think about the cornerback and secondary tackling as a whole.
Yeah.
Cooper, Castro, Jamari,
Quinn
Schulte, not to the same extent as the other 4.
He doesn't miss tackles at least.
But just the physicality they bring in the flats. And
it's 4 linebackers.
The no-doubter tackles where it's not like Moss was a good tackler.
Yeah.
But when those guys hit you, you go down right away. And there's no extra yardage.
Well, in the way that Iowa football likes to play defense, that's imperative because we're playing to not give up extra yards once the ball is caught or if there's any open space. The idea is that you're trying to limit every play to 3 yards. And if you can eliminate a guy at 2.5, then that play becomes – that's where the offenses get tight because all of a sudden you're sitting in second at 8 and they're sitting back in that cover 3, cover 4 shell, and they're going to let you play underneath, and you're just going to tee up one of your guys again for someone coming up hard and hitting someone. We're probably going to see a fair amount of guys get knocked out this season just from the tackling ability of the secondary.
Oh, yeah. And just, no extra yards at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's up to you now for the next 2. I'm interested to see where you go with it.
Well, I'll go with the transfer, Nick Jackson.
Oh, I didn't have him on my board.
Really?
Yeah. I like this film, but
I just think he fits into the NFL mold really well. He's not an overly tall guy. He's 5'11", 6 feet tall.
Maybe 6'1".
I think that's more of a football height thing. But he fits in so well into that weak side linebacker role that Iowa likes to play, where you think back, you got Seth Benson for the past 2 or 3 seasons, DeJymin Colbert, back to Cole Fisher before then, Bo Bauer. Guys who run really well, smart players. Went to school in Virginia. Obviously, a really smart guy. He had over 300 tackles at Virginia. He's going to be that guy you play into that like quasi curl outside the numbers zone. Yeah. And he runs well and he tackles well. So I think he's going to have one of those seasons where he comes in and just plays good football for 12 games.
Yeah. I think I had a hesitation towards all the transfers. I think just the way Iowa plays defense, it's not like how other teams play defense.
Yeah.
And it just brought a concern to me. I'm like, if I pick these guys, they might not even finish the year as a starter.
Yeah.
And we saw it with Heflin.
I don't think a guy who has 300 tackles in college football is going to be
I don't think
backup, right?
It's not a bad pick. It's just not the best.
Well,
but I think Heflin...
It makes no sense that he's going to be a backup. He's going to get beat up by Sherrard.
I just think going back to Heflin, like Heflin ended up being an NFL caliber player. Yeah. But early on in that 2020 season, he got upfield. He took the wrong route.
Yeah.
He didn't play two gap it.
Yeah.
And I think linebacker is even more like that, where you're not supposed to gamble. You're not supposed to, you're playing your lane.
Yeah.
Coverage is very difficult. You have to get your eyes back and find a guy, and they trust you to do a lot. Absolutely. And it's generally we don't play the best athlete there.
Yeah.
Generally we play a guy who's going to play it
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of led to
I think a guy with 3 years of starting experience at a Power 5 level understands team defense.
Yeah.
And if I believe he was a captain on his team. He was second team all ACC.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to have a difficult time picking up the concepts of football. Whether it's going to take some, teaching early, he might make a couple mistakes. He might not get depth enough on a zone. We've seen that from players in that position.
Or jump something.
I think that's more of a young guy thing. We've seen that how young linebackers, we go back to Reggie Spearman, plays a true freshman, or a couple other guys where they'll come in and think they have to react because that's what they did in high school. But a guy who's played, that many games, I don't think he's going to struggle to understand his role within the defense.
That's fair.
My next pick would be Jamari Harris. So he's obviously coming off an ACL injury. That's anytime that's happens to especially a player
corner
playing outside, that's dangerous. You have some trepidation around that. Again, though, we saw him towards the latter part of the 2021 season start to kind of come into form where we see those Phil Parker D-backs start to play at a really high level. And he's always been a guy, we mentioned prior to this, but he's always been a guy who came up and tackled really well. Fearless in run support.
Right.
We'll just blitz by, he'll say, fuck it, and just go right by a receiver.
Well, I remember his play in the flats against Kentucky.
Yeah.
Where he kind of finally turned the corner where we came into last year going, we have Jamari at corner.
Yeah.
Holy shit, he's going to be good.
In my mind, he was better than Moss.
Yeah. Just because of his physicality and run game.
And
that one play, and then I think he had two more in Kentucky where he jumped a route in the flats where you could really tell he started to smell certain plays and play confidently. And I think definitely a good pick, and he was definitely my next one.
Yeah, and he's had some some growing pains. He got beat on the swing pass against Michigan, and I believe he got beat on that play twice, I believe. It was Iowa State?
He got beat against Nebraska, too, a few times where they would show somebody in front of him and they'd run a tight end.
But if it wasn't for those, if you were just going off his last 4 games, which we probably should be when it comes to experience and belief, you're going off the last 4 games of 2021, he could be as high as 4 on this list. Like, he is that talented. Like, I think again, we say this about Iowa DBs all the time, but he might be a guy you eventually transition to safety in the NFL. But I think he's going to run well enough. I think, and there's so many teams out there that are recognizing at corner you really need a tackler, and that's why Michael Ojemudia wasn't a super highly touted guy coming out of college, and I'm going in the third round to Denver because of that tackling ability and staying at corner. So I think that's just going to be put at a premium. I think he's going to eventually carve out a pretty nice NFL career.
So I'm up next, right?
Back to you. We're going to talk 40 minutes about defense and then 10 minutes about offense.
I'm going to go Jay Higgins for the same reason why I think he owns the middle linebacker spot.
Yeah.
I think there's talks early last year around springtime last spring essentially, that Campbell and Benson were hurt the entire spring, and he ran the defense, and It was the moment where Phil Parker finally goes, "Oh, you can do this."
Yeah, like we have to play you.
Yeah, and he had and he broke into a rotation that was
Yeah,
really solid with between
Justin,
Benson, and Campbell.
Yeah.
They're like, we have to get Higgins on the field.
Yeah,
and those are like the kind of the head nods that coaches give certain players, where you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
because they didn't have to do that.
No,
and he flashed. I remember the Purdue game for sure. He got hooked by a guy. It should have went for 15, 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
They had C-gap wide open. And he just bench pressed a tackle, got over it, and made the play. And you and I both looked at each other and went, oh, shit, that guy can play.
That was a play.
Yeah. And now you have probably the best defensive line in the Big Ten in terms of depth and returning talent.
Easily.
And just the way they're coached. And our system, middle linebacker is the guy to be.
Yep.
Campbell has put up back-to-back 100-year tackles. Higgins, I think, will have an equal year. I think he's not going to play as many snaps because I think they're going to.
I don't think he'll be as good in pass defense.
Yeah.
Campbell, they'd spread everyone out and try and run a arrow or an underneath route against Campbell, and he'd shut it down. I don't think he'll have that in this game, but I think run support and flow into the ball.
Yeah, and that's what I'm not expecting, because Campbell's the amount of reps Campbell got.
Yeah.
He started in 2019, and the amount of pass plays he had to cover and the amount of run plays he saw, those reps add up.
Yeah.
And we saw it with Campbell, who kind of struggled early in his career in pass coverage.
Yeah.
That play where he drops back under Stroud's receiver and one hand picks it.
Yeah.
Was like the culmination of like Campbell's career.
Yeah.
It was the best player of his career.
That's
by
like
a mile.
That's like Kirk Ferentz believing in his system.
Yeah.
It's like, if we let guys run 4 plays for an entire season, they will eventually run it perfect.
Right. And he did.
Yeah.
And I think Higgins he's just going to have one of those years. I think it's the first time in a while where a 1-year senior,
Quentin Alston.
Yeah, it was the last time. And if you think that's the comparison, you're not thinking
no,
good about
that's what makes me worried.
Right. But I think
he's also behind Campbell. So it's, it's a different story.
But that's why I maybe would have drafted Higgins even higher. But then my only memory of this is Quentin Alston in 2014.
Yeah.
And
he played okay. I think he was honorable mention all Big Ten.
I just remember he had a play against Wisconsin that was just
unforgivable.
Brutal. Yeah. And that was just a frustrating season, so you have bad memories of it. But I think Higgins is going to have big numbers. I think it's a position we turn in the NFL a lot, and I'm just excited to see what he does this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had him on my list. I actually think I had him as an honorable mention behind a couple guys. That's 2 for you, isn't it? Or is it just 1?
That is 1.
Okay, you got 1 more.
I'm going to go with kind of this is just another position group Iowa just murders at. And it's a film I loved the first time I watched it. I thought it was better than X's. I thought he had a better film than What Campus. TJ Hall is going to play nickel corner or dime corner this year.
Dime corner, yeah.
If there's an injury, he's going to get plugged and played.
Which there will be at corner.
There will be. He will start a game for us this year.
Yeah.
His film and how fluid he moves and how quick he is. And then just once again, when you get the Phil Parker seal of approval.
Yep.
He got it early in camp last year.
Yep.
He got it.
He was a spring guy. They were talking about him
I didn't
last
know
spring. Yeah, he's a January guy.
Well, he came in and he had like 4 picks in camp.
Yeah.
And then you watch him, he gets plugged in. He jumped like 3 or 4 guys and played against
Beat
Purdue.
up Charlie Jones.
Yep. And when you get anointed that early under Phil Parker, he's like, I'm going to take the bumps and bruises. I don't care.
Yeah.
What happened against him versus Nebraska this year, Phil Parker doesn't care about.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to put my 6 to 8 games into this guy. And by that 9th game, he's going to be playing at all Big Ten level. And he's got the perfect background to do that. Just how quick he is out of his breaks, anticipation he has.
It's just understandable what he walked into too, though. You know, with that Nebraska game, it's kind of like the villain arc of Riley Moss.
Yeah.
We don't blame. I mean, there was a lot of hate for Riley Moss after that 2018 Purdue game. And then now he's a 3rd-round draft pick in the NFL and was an all Big Ten player for 2 years in a row.
Big Ten DB of the year.
Big Ten DB of the year. So I see why you'd be excited about him. I just have a difficult time with, because when you have a memory like that baked in, it's going to take him a year.
Yeah, and I think the way I drafted was, it's not about just this next year. It's about 2 years from now. I think he could be the best player on the team.
Yeah.
3 years from now.
I agree with that.
And I think and projecting out cornerback.
Yeah.
All right, if you're Phil Parker's guy at cornerback, what does that mean? It means you're a
NFL.
2nd rounder, like most likely, if you're getting anointed that early. I think we haven't seen cornerbacks anointed early that have not panned
Also
out.
had some rather lean cornerback recruiting. Dees Fernandez really hasn't turned out. Joshua Turner.
AJ Lawson.
Lawson. A lot of those guys haven't cracked into the two deeps. That's why they're looking to bring in another guy this spring.
Mm-hmm.
Just a difficult position too. It's there's only two of them that play, and they usually play for a couple of years. So then you have a lot of turnover in the transfer portal. So I like the pick though.
Yeah, I do too. How many are we at now? We at
I think that's
8.
8.
So
Yeah,
you got.
I'll just go 1-1.
Last 2. I think
it's just some bad math getting floated around now.
I think you're the last 2.
Last 2.
We've been snaking ever since. So
yeah. I'll take Yaya Black.
Yep, he's on my list, and it's.
I know. I think only reason I don't have Logan Lee ahead of him is just because of size.
You can't take Logan Lee over.
Logan Lee could be. He's what, 290 this year probably.
Yeah, I think just for Logan Lee's incredible player at Iowa. Like
he's like Louis
super excited for him.
But like
going to be extremely productive this year. Great Hawkeye.
Yeah.
NFL. It's going to be
I just don't see why
undrafted free agent.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah, then that's why you put Yaya over.
Yeah,
because Yaya, you look at him, you're like, this guy should be, but like production wise, it's not even close.
But to be fair to Yaya is like as a D tackle, you're walking off the bench, you're playing against these linemen who played an entire game already.
Yeah,
you're coming off cold off the bench.
We've seen backup D tackles play poorly for years.
Nixon wasn't good off the bench. There's been Shannon and Logan Lee were
Cedric
good.
Lattimore,
yeah. Plenty of guys who sit in that backup D tackle role walk off the bench, and they're just not warm. They're not ready for the violence or whatever it is. But with Yaya, there's been rumors of him being a dominant force since he was a true freshman.
Yeah,
and
there's always reports that like Yaya's unblockable.
Yeah, and
then I'm like waiting for it to happen, and then you watch the games and you just don't see him flash.
Yeah,
like
I think he gasses out really easily.
Yeah, and I don't think he plays with great leverage. I think he's just a massive guy, and maybe in practice that works, but he hasn't shown that.
Might be scheme based, might be better against zone blocking,
and maybe when he starts in a year,
it will be like
wow, he's going to be the first rounder. Yeah, but you just never. It happens all the time with backup D tackles. Yeah. It's a difficult position to come in and play well and play fast.
Yeah. And then my last guy. I did have Logan Lee, but I'll go Ethan Hurkett just to go with a random guy. I think
over Llewellyn?
Yes. He's far more athletic than Llewellyn, is my opinion.
Oh, I don't know about that.
He is. He's a lot bendier. Remember we watched that Llewellyn clip where he ran to the sideline and it looked like he was lurch.
I know. But I just go back to the high school films that Llewellyn had some
but he might not put the weight on as well as Hurkett did.
And that's what I would have made the same argument you're making.
Yeah.
And I did think about Hurkett, but I just saw it bigger, longer, quicker from what I've seen.
Hurkett's big enough though. He's probably 6'3". I think he could stick in the NFL because there's been a couple of reps we've seen. Definitely. It's been against lower tier teams. I think it was like Colorado State last year where we saw an outside inside move. And I was like, holy shit. Yeah. Like that was legit. And he's had a difficult time staying healthy and he's going to be buried again. Joe Evans did him no favors by coming back. He's going to, if they end up thinking about moving Graves outside to D end, it's going to be difficult for him to see any time. So I do imagine he's still going to play quite a bit. But I think he's going to be that guy where he steps into his redshirt senior year because he's going to be a redshirt junior this year. He's going to step into his redshirt senior year as a starter and have a huge season. Yeah. Because he's had a couple times where technique's broken down. His run support hasn't been great, but from just a sheer athleticism perspective, I think he's really solid.
Yeah. I think he's, like you said, just the product of having a loaded room around him.
Yeah.
Old guys around him. He hasn't had the ability to show everything he has. If he had a start for us this year, I'd be totally fine with that. Yeah. I think he'd be a very productive.
I think he'd be great.
Possibly not, I don't know about all Big Ten, but he could have an honorable mention type of year where I'd be like, oh yeah, we can take Hurkett for half the snaps.
Certainly.